On behalf of Department of Economics, welcome you all to the inaugural of the SDGs Research and Resource Center established by Department of Economics in collaboration with World Bank and the South Asia Economic Policy Network. The center was established during Second International Conference on Sustainable Development in Contemporary World, Priorities, Challenges and Prospects, organized by Department of Economics in collaboration with the World Bank on October 4 to 6, 2022. To formally start the inaugural ceremony, I would like to invite Ms. Narjis Khatun from Department of Economics to recite some verses from Holy Quran.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الرحمن علم القرآن خلق الإنسان علمه البيان الشمس والقمر بحسبان والنجم والشجر يسجدان والسماء رفعها ووضع الميزان ألا تطغوا في الميزان وأقيموا الوزن بالقسط ولا تخسروا الميزان والأرض وضعها للأنام فيها فاكهة والنخل ذات الأكمام والحب ذو العصف والريحان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان خلق الإنسان من صلصال كالفخار وخلق الجان المشرقين ورب المغربين فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان مرج البحرين يلتقيان بينهما برزخ لا يبغيان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان يخرج منهما اللؤلؤ والمرجان فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان وله الجوار المنشآت في البحر كالأعلام فبأي آلاء ربكما تكذبان كل من عليها فان ويبقى وجه ربك ذو الجلال والإكرام صدق الله العلي العظيم.
Jazakallah. Now I would like to invite Professor Dr. Bushra Yasmin, Director, SDGs Research and Resource Center for the overview of center. Parallel to her speech, a virtual tour of the center is also presented.
Assalamualaikum. Thank you so much for joining us. I welcome you all to the inaugural of the ceremony of SDGs Research and Resource Center established at the Department of Economics in collaboration with the World Bank. As we know that in 2015, the United Nations adopted Sustainable Development Goals as the Global Development Agenda to be achieved by 2030. The SDGs are built on the outcome of Millennium Development Goals by incorporating many new areas. They are a universal call to action to end poverty, human deprivation, and to ensure equal access to fundamental human entitlements. And academia has an overarching responsibility in raising informed communities capable of becoming key contributors for achieving SDGs. In this regard, universities are a vital source for providing requisite research-based insights, high-quality education, and groundbreaking innovation. They are excellent promoters of global and local partnerships. Notably, universities support students in developing rigorous scientific mindset, the spirit of curiosity, and entrepreneurship needed to produce the solution to the sustainable development challenges. From that context, the Department of Economics organized its first international conference on sustainable development in 2015 in collaboration with the Higher Education Commission, and conducted its second international conference on sustainable development in contemporary world on 4 to 6 October 2022 in collaboration with the World Bank and South Asia Economic Policy Network. True to its form, the conference closed with the launch of the center, again with the support of the World Bank. The center is a think tank established with the view that recurrent generation, optimal allocation, and efficient utilization of limited resources by the academia can formulate the trajectories for achieving sustainable development goals. The mission of the center is to assist communities and policymakers in Pakistan for achieving sustainable development in all its dimensions, economic, social, and environmental, by conducting insightful research that aids in translating SDGs in actionable policies and solutions. We hope the center will play its role efficiently in raising awareness, sensitization, and scaling the efforts up in achieving sustainable development goals. Thank you so much for joining.
Dear audience, let me introduce you to the guest speaker of today's session, Ms. Uzma Quraish, presently working as Senior Social Development Specialist at the World Bank. Ms. Quraish has more than 14 years of experience working on gender equality and women's empowerment with international and national organizations covering a diverse range of issues including women's economic empowerment, financial inclusion, enterprise development, violence against women, disaster risk reduction and management, food security, gender-responsive budgeting and planning. She previously worked with UN Women in Pakistan for 8 years, leading its Women's Economic Empowerment Program and managed UN Women Uganda's portfolio in 2016. Please welcome Ms. Usma Quraish to speak on women's economic participation in Pakistan.
Hi everyone. Sorry, I did not prepare extensively for this session, but thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to discuss SDGs, and I'm very impressed with the work that Fatima Women's University is doing, especially on the Sustainable Development Goals, and as you all know, World Bank is also part of as part of your family, we are also committed to supporting the governments all over the world in achieving Sustainable Development Goals. And I am really hopeful that Pakistan will be able to improve on the indicators within the SDGs. We all know Pakistan was not able to achieve all NDGs related indicators, especially on women and girls. But of course, the hope is there, and a lot of resources are made available to the government and also to other development partners, by the development partners, to make this a reality. So let's all work together to get this done. So today, the purpose of this presentation was to share some of the work that World Bank is doing in Pakistan on, like my colleague just said, on women's economic participation. So I'm Senior Social Development Specialist, but my area of inquiry in the World Bank is to promote women's empowerment. And within that, we focus on women's economic empowerment and, of course, women's protection from gender-based violence. And when I say women, we also take into account other vulnerable groups like transgender and other gender minorities, and also within women, we know there are several other, intersectionalities like women with disability, ethnic, religious minority women, that makes it further, that compounds their realities in accessing education, health, and economic opportunities. So the program that I'm going to talk to you about today is the gender program that we run in the World Bank office, and one of the areas is analytical work. And within that area, we have worked extensively on understanding the issue of female labor force participation in Pakistan. And I'm sure are you all from economics?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm sure you all know in Pakistan, female labor force participation is very low. In fact, Pakistan has one of the lowest female labor force participation in the world and also in South Asia. So we wanted to understand through these, analytical researchers why that is the case, and especially in urban areas. I mean, if it's as low as like let's say 21.4% currently according to Labor Force Survey, why it is so low, let's say 10% in the urban areas. And when we say urban areas, I mean we are talking about cities like Lahore, Karachi, Peshawar, Quetta, which are not very different when it comes to urban female labor force participation. So that has been an area of concern for a long time, and we developed 7 technical notes on that, looking at it from various angles. But we did more research in Quetta and also in Peshawar, and some of the qualitative work that we have done, it was done in all 4 urban centers of Pakistan: Lahore, Karachi, Quetta, and Peshawar. So yes, I've talked about labor force participation. Another area that stands out when we discuss female labor force participation is sexual harassment. And this, again, the evidence tells us that it's a major concern in Pakistan because women experience sexual harassment, gender-based violence at homes and also in public spaces. And there is a study also which was done. Oh, this might be. Just stay here. Okay. So, so sexual harassment is a major area of concern. So we have studied that in detail also. Again, in urban spaces in Peshawar and in Quetta, which I'll shortly, share the highlights of that study. So one of the key areas of concern within female labor force participation for us is home-based workers. Because when we were conducting studies on women's economic participation in different urban centers, we found out that majority of women, even in urban centers, they're engaged in home-based work. For example, in Quetta's case, we found out that about 78% of women, they are engaged in informal home-based work, which means they are working from home, but they are engaged in economic activity. Similarly, in Peshawar, we found out that about 65% of women, they are working from home. So home-based workers, became an area that, we wanted to study in detail. But again, that's not the only, consideration that, we found out that women are engaged in home-based workers, in home-based work. We wanted to investigate it further because we have supported the government of Pakistan in passing laws on home-based workers in all provinces. I don't know if you are aware, Sindh was the only province that passed a law on informal home-based workers, granting them rights as formal labor, and also to enable their access to social security benefits and decent wages, which they currently lack because they are informal workers, and informal workers, as you know, they don't have access to formal labor rights and formal labor benefits. So we supported the government of Pakistan through our development policy credit program, which is about $1 billion, $900 million. To the federal government, and through that we were able to get 13 laws, support the government in getting 13 laws passed on women's economic participation. And three of them focused on home-based workers, the remaining they focused on different aspects that can improve women's working conditions. For example, their access to toilets, their access to childcare, their access to safe transport. So if you look at our various labor laws, they have several restrictions or absence. For example, if the law does not specify how a private sector company should operate or what sort of working condition related factors should be in place if we have to hire more women, the law probably, the absence of these factors can in fact restrict women's labor force participation. For example, I'll just give you an example. In two of the labor laws, one clause was that women will or shall not work during night. So they were prohibited from working during which is after 7 p.m. they were not allowed to work. So clauses like these. And the absence of their access to maternity benefits. And as we all know, women, when they are starting their careers, there is a huge dip once they get married and if they have children. So the concerns like, who will take care of children and, do we have access to child care? So this again further restricts women's access to better economic opportunities. So through those laws, we were able to at least get the legal barriers to some extent out of the way. And now we are doing this home-based worker study to understand this area a bit more. For example, Labour Force Survey has recently, I think 2017 Labour Force Survey was the first time when they started asking the question, place of work. So for the first time, Labour Force Survey was able to identify which workers within the overall category of workers or employed people are home-based workers. And this goes without saying, of course, majority of those homeless workers are women. Because of social norms, because of several other reasons, because these jobs are insecure, they don't pay a lot. So women generally, globally, they are concentrated in jobs that are less productive, that are concentrated in sectors which don't pay a lot. So for Pakistan, it also becomes more important in the context of floods, which we recently saw. It has devastated several provinces, especially especially Sindh and Balochistan. And so we conducted a social impact assessment also. So I'm giving you the background. I'm sorry, I'm not looking at the slides, but they are more or less describing the analytical work we have done. So social impact assessment that we did in the floods, that also highlighted that women homeless workers, female on and off farm workers, daily workers, livestock workers, which are all women, they were the worst affected in terms of loss of livelihoods. So this was it was not a revelation. Of course, we knew, vulnerable groups will always be the worst hit in the aftermath of any disaster. But it again reaffirmed our commitment to more analytical work on informing homeless workers, what sort of challenges they are facing. So we are conducting a mixed method, both qualitative and quantitative study in 4 districts of Pakistan in collaboration with the government. So the government requested us, and we are doing it now in Balochistan, in Haran and Quetta, and in Peshawar and Haripur in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. And we are going to do it in 20 districts of Sindh also, because Sindh government also requested us. So we are going to collect data on homeless workers, and also we are going to support the government in registering them as workers, because like I said, now in all over Pakistan, informal homeless workers are entitled to formal workers' rights. So these studies, they are the first of its kind. Quantitative survey has never been done on informal homeless workers, and as I mentioned earlier, majority of these workers are women. And in fact, there are some very interesting findings coming out, and I would encourage all of you to please participate in our upcoming launch workshop, which is in May. So on 8th May, we are going to launch these findings in collaboration with both the governments. And one of the findings is that, for example, let's say in Peshawar's case, 85% women, of employed women, they are homeless workers. And similarly, in case of Quetta is also again more than 80%. In Kharan's case, it's almost 100%. This again gives us an idea. I mean, it's just like one statistic, but it gives us an idea how women in Pakistan, though their work is underestimated, undercounted, they are overwhelmingly concentrated in informal homeless sector, which is not making their lives better, or which is not giving them access to better economic opportunities. So these are some of the findings. I'll leave this presentation with you related to our qualitative study, the barriers that they face, skills. For example, in case of skills, we found out that majority of these women, they have never received skills training from any formal institute. So when we ask them, okay, so have you ever attended or have you ever been exposed to a skill training, they would say, yes, we have learned it from from our teacher, which is my appa, someone from my some neighbor. So it's like mind-blowing how these women who are working day and night, they never got this opportunity to get any sort of formal accreditation for the work that they are doing at home. Can you go to the next slide, please? So this is our Peshawar urban survey that I was just talking about, and this gives us a lot of, it brings to light a lot of work that women are doing at home. For example, you can say, like I said, labor force survey also takes into account, women's economic participation, and as you can see, it tells us that 9.4% women in Peshawar, urban Peshawar, they are engaged in some sort of economic activity. But our survey tells us that the figure is about 13.4%. So the difference is significant. I mean, from a statistic point of view, it is significant. And also, if you include the some other categories like the agricultural consumption, the percentage raises to 15.5%. So I know the female labor force participation overall still remains very low. 15.5% is not a lot, but it is still significantly different from 9.4%. So this tells us, the data discrepancy which exists if the surveys are not conducted in a manner where women's economic activities are also comprehensively recorded. Can you go to the next slide, please? So Peshawar Urban Survey, we were also able to conduct a detailed sort of inquiry into sexual harassment of women in urban spaces. So as you can see, about a quarter of, not quarter, 33% of women, they said they have experienced sexual harassment in public spaces. And that's despite the fact that overwhelming majority of women in urban Peshawar, they said they never leave their home unaccompanied. So you can see, their mobility is extremely restricted. So when you ask them why, you don't leave your home, they would tell you because of fear of harassment. And if they are going out, 33% of them are still being, harassed. And then there is a lot of value judgment also going on within those groups. So why do you think women are being harassed? They would say, oh, I am not harassed because I am dressed in a certain way. I cover myself, or I'm always accompanied, by my brother or by my husband. So we will see that, these patriarchal norms and gender norms that further restrict women's agency, their autonomy. They are not just like, they're, let's say, these things that we found out, they were not said by men. Women were also, sort of, they believed it and they perpetuate it also to some extent. This is also confirmed by other surveys. If you look at multi-indicator cluster survey, which tells us that, almost a similar number of women, percentage of women and men, they believe it is okay for a husband to beat his wife if she does one of the following, which is like, if she burns the food, if she goes out without telling her husband. So the background is that these patriarchal norms, they are rigid and they reign supreme, but it does not mean we cannot work on them. And studies like these, once we find out, the prevalence, the social norms behind it, what sort of attitudes and perceptions exist within women and men, it helps us to work on them, right? Can you go to the next slide? Yeah, so that's our urban Quota survey, and that again is like you can see, the labor force survey tells us that women's participation is only 8.6%, whereas our findings, because we did this household survey, and that tells us it's 16.1%, which is like double. So definitely labor force survey is undercounting women's work. So that needs to be taken. And one of the, I think the thing that we found in our study is that one of the main reasons is that they use proxy respondents. So if you are asking a male head of the household, what do different family members do, they tend to minimize or not talk about women's work, especially economic work. Can you go to the next slide? So again, that's sexual harassment. We had a lot of missing values in that, but that also, despite the missing values, you can see 27 to 28% women say they have been harassed. And just consider the context. We are talking about urban Quetta. We are talking about where you don't see a lot of women on the street anyway. And we are talking about Peshawar. If you go to Peshawar, the first thing that hits you, you don't see very many women out on the street. So even in that context, we through these studies, we are finding out that a large percentage of women, they still feel unsafe and they experience sexual harassment, and that then kind of like gives you a perverse sort of this is a perverse factor which makes women to stay at home. If they know they are going to be harassed when they go out, if their families know they are going to be harassed when they go out, they won't step out. So both these things, they negatively reinforce each other. Can you go to the next slide? So I am just quickly going through the work that we had done. I'm sorry, I'm not going through the findings. This presentation will be with you. You can look at it, and you can always come back to me with questions. I'll share. And these notes are also publicly available. So if you Google them, they are all public knowledge. And if you don't get them, just let me know. I'll share the links with you. So this study is not publicly available because we are currently working on it. So again, since we found, like we all know, women and girls in Pakistan, our Pakistan Demographic Health Survey tells us, about 33%, 32% of women, they experience some form of violence in Pakistan. So this study was specifically related to school-related gender-based violence. And we did a qualitative study in all 4 provinces of Pakistan, taking into account both, urban and rural areas. And women, and we interviewed young women. Because of ethical reasons, we didn't really, interview children. And we asked them about their experiences when they were in schools. And of course, it's like, again, it's no surprise that women shared all sorts of experiences and how they experienced harassment on almost every point on their way to school and also within schools. So can you, so these were some of the findings. You can see this is very interesting. If you look at it, this gives you an indication, where girls actually felt safe. So yes, school is the only place where they are happy with friends, whereas everywhere else they either have experienced or they were afraid that they would be sexually harassed. Yeah. So findings also, like you can see, in terms of prevention, we found out there is no established system, to report gender-based violence within schools. And students, they were not even aware if there were any mechanisms that are available. Protection, again, there was no sort of like, counseling system available for children who experience any form of violence. No referral system, no services. And we also did a review for the laws. So there is like, that on that front, on the legal front also, it's very patchy. There is no comprehensive law that prohibits, let's say, gender-based violence against children, school-going children. So we have like, several laws like, Xenab Alert and, other laws that were passed in the aftermath of, some heinous crimes committed against children. But, comprehensively, there is no law that covers every form of violence against children. And there are no punitive measures also. There are some like, some laws on corporal punishment, but again, they are not applicable to all provinces. So if perpetrator is employee, the case is sent to relevant department, but we couldn't find out, what exactly happens to them. And can you go to the next slide?
I think this is the last.
That's the last. Okay, great. So we are also doing legal review of barriers to female labor force participation, which means, like I said, we supported the government in passing 13 laws to promote women's economic empowerment, but that review will tell us where the gaps still exist. I'll give you an example. Despite those 13 laws, one of the laws in Punjab Shops and Establishment Act, it still says women cannot work after 8 p.m. So, gaps like these, we have to be vigilant, and also, as a World Bank representative, which is our job, when we engage with the government, with provincial governments, we highlight these lacunas to address them, so that women and men, men are already like free in terms of like legal barriers, women also can equally exploit all economic opportunities. So I'll stop here, and if you have any questions, I'm here. Please let me know. Any question? Even related to these studies, because I didn't share all the findings, and if you want to know any other thing that we are doing, for example, we have a lot of projects on education also, on health, on infrastructure, and my job is to make sure they take into account women and girls' concerns.
Yeah? Sorry.
Shadia.
I'll start. I'm Sadia Shehbaz Vikmet. Okay, so I wanted to ask you about the difficulty in data collection, because especially when you're dealing with women, men are not willing to leave them alone with you, so you can ask them more candid questions. I've carried out a few survey studies, so I know when you're dealing with more educated class and all that, or you're approaching them in the university or workplace, the things are different. But when you're conducting household study, what kind of problems do you face, and how do you convince people to allow you to give it, or give you some privacy in which you can ask more private questions, especially regarding sexual harassment?
Yeah. So that was actually a very big challenge for us when we were doing it in Peshawar and Quetta. You know, how conservative the environment is there generally, and especially, we had to be very, very careful to not subject, any group, especially women and girls, to any further harm, because sexual harassment generally is a very, very sensitive topic. So we had to be extra careful. So what we did was, we trained our enumerators extensively. So we had an equal number of women and male enumerators, because this study, it was part of urban household surveys. So we were not just asking them questions about labor, we were not just asking them questions about sexual harassment, but it was also related to water, sanitation, other practices. But for labor and also for sexual harassment, our discussion with the enumerators was that they had to ask these questions separately to women. And since they could not use proxy respondents just to make sure the data is credible, so we had to train them extensively. And then we also, at some point, we decided we were going to sort of chop down a list of organizations that are working on providing services to gender-based violence survivors, because we didn't know how these discussions will go. If women, they get further traumatized by the questions though we did not ask specifically, have you been sexually harassed? That was not the question. We were generally asking them, but even this inquiry can bring trauma. So we had to sensitize them, and then we made a list of organizations. But later on further discussion, on the team, we decided we are not going to share that list. First we thought we should be sharing it with women respondents, but again, considering Peshawar and Quetta, they are so conservative, and men generally are they're everywhere. So if you are reaching out to household women, you have to sort of make men comfortable. We are not asking any question which can be controversial. So we would just so enumerators would also ask questions from men. So the survey, like I said, it was an urban household survey. It was not just directed or targeted towards women and girls. So what we would do is, our male enumerator will talk to male member about their economic activities and about other services, and our female enumerator would be okay, so we have to ask these questions from women about their access to services, about different the economic activities they are engaged in. And so we did not talk, for example, male family members did not know we were going to ask women specific questions on sexual harassment. And one thing that we did was, we also gave enumerators the phone numbers of our team and our implementing partner. So we hired a civil society organization who provides counseling services to GBV survivors. So what we would do is, we would give a simple phone number to the woman, And in that case also we faced a lot of problems. We would tell the woman what this is for. If she has forgotten any information, if she wants to share anything related to sexual harassment, or if she wants to get support, this is the number you should call. And that number was of our main enumerators. So those enumerators would then connect them to the organization. So we didn't give them the number of direct, civil society organization. So what happened was, which we were anticipating, that only men called us on those numbers, because women, when once our enumerators left, they gave those numbers to their male family members, because they were very curious what you were discussing, what you were doing. So they called us and they were like, what's going on? What is this number? So we told them that we gave this number to women respondents if they forgot anything, and if they want to elaborate further on the questions that we asked them. So it was that. So we had to handle it very sensitively to make sure, again, women and girls of the family are not subject to any form of violence because of our survey. Does it? Yeah. जी.
मैम मैंने आपसे पूछना था, जैसे कि आप बता रही हैं कि वुमेन के लिए उनकी फैमिली में होते हुए, घर में होते हुए इस तरह का डिस्कशन करना या कुछ कहना इतना मुश्किल है, जबकि यहाँ पे मतलब सब लोग मौजूद हैं. तो जिस तरह ये जो घर में काम करेंगे, आपको लगता है इतना पॉसिबल होगा कि वो कभी बाहर काम कर सकेंगी, जो कि अपने घर में होते हुए अपने हक के लिए नहीं बोल पा रही, कि मतलब उन्हें कह सकती कि हमारे साथ ये हो रहा है, ये हो रहा है. तो उनकी फैमिलीज या उनके हस्बैंड्स उनको किस तरीके से परमिशन देंगे कि वो बाहर जाके इकोनॉमिक एक्टिविटी में या पार्टिसिपेट करेंगे, जब तक वो घर में बोल भी नहीं पा रहे अपने बारे में.
अच्छा, आपका नाम क्या है? मनाहिर. थैंक यू. आपका क्वेश्चन. थैंक यू सो मच. ये बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट क्वेश्चन है. इसमें जो चीज़ हमें जहन में रखनी है एज अ रिसर्च स्टूडेंट, बिकॉज यू आर कंडक्टिंग रिसर्चेस एंड यू आर ऑल्सो गोइंग टू कंडक्ट मोर रिसर्चेस एज यू गो further in your career, in your studies, is that social norms, ये जो आप बात कर रही हैं, कि ये जो social norms होते हैं जिसकी वजह से औरतों के साथ वायलेंस हो रहा है, या उनकी पोजीशन जो है वो घर के अंदर comparatively या relatively equal नहीं है compared to men and let's say boys in the family, ये social norms जो हैं ये rigid नहीं होते हैं, ये fluid होते हैं. Social norms जो हैं they can change over time. They can transform for the better, they can transform for the worst. और ये जो मैं better और worst कह रही हूँ, उसके अंदर भी बहुत सारी डिग्रीज होती हैं. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, वो जैसे हम जेंडर की ट्रेनिंग जब करते हैं तो हम बात करते हैं कि आपके ये नॉर्म्स जो हैं, जैसे फॉर एग्जाम्पल किसी एक एरिया में वो नॉर्म है जी कि औरत ड्राइव नहीं कर सकती, बट ओवर द पैसेज ऑफ टाइम वी हैव सीन इन 50 years हमने देखा है पाकिस्तान में इतनी सारी चीज़ें चेंज हो गई हैं, राइट. मतलब पहले औरतें अगर जो हैं वो एक काम नहीं कर सकती थी, अब वो औरतें वो काम कर रही हैं. उसको उसी लेंस को आप हाउस होल्ड के ऊपर जो है वो अप्लाई करें. हाउस होल्ड के अंदर भी ये बिल्कुल इस बात का मकसद नहीं है, जो हमने ये स्टडी की है, कि औरतें जो घर में रहती हैं उनकी कोई एजेंसी नहीं होती. दैट्स नॉट ट्रू. women are negotiating their rights everywhere. I mean, women from merged areas, from FATA, वो हमारा एक प्रोजेक्ट है वहाँ पे टेम्परेरी डिस्प्लेस्ड पीपल के साथ. उसमें जब हमने वो स्टार्ट किया है वो प्रोजेक्ट, तो फाटा में मैंने आपको कहा कि पेशावर में और कोयटा में भी ख़वातीन जो हैं वो तो घरों से निकल ही नहीं रही बिकॉज ऑफ फियर ऑफ हरासमेंट. और उसके बावजूद हरासमेंट हो रही है, which is further again restricting their economic participation. Maybe they are engaged more at work, at home, but not outside. उसी चीज़ को अप्लाई करें यहाँ पर फाटा में. तो फाटा में ख़वातीन के लिए हमने जो प्रोजेक्ट किया वहाँ पर वो था सिर्फ सिंपल इम्यूनाइजेशन का. बच्चों को इम्यूनाइजेशन करवाएं, हम आपको कंडीशनल कैश ट्रांसफर देंगे. और वो हम इसलिए कह रही हूँ कि वो गवर्नमेंट का प्रोजेक्ट है. वर्ल्ड बैंक तो सिर्फ लेंडिंग करता है, हमारा उसमें सिर्फ टेक्निकल होता है, गवर्नमेंट के अपने पैसे हों. तो हमने जो सपोर्ट किया उसमें ये था कि जी आप ख़वातीन को पैसे दें, वो सेंटर्स में आए, उनको पैसे मिलेंगे अगर वो बच्चे को इम्यूनाइज कराएंगे. तो इन द बिगिनिंग 93% जो थे, जो औरतों के बिहाफ पे रजिस्टर कर रहे थे, वो मर्द थे. हालांकि वो सब्सिडी जो थी वो ख़वातीन के लिए थी, लेकिन उनके बिहाफ पे मर्द आ रहे थे कि हमारे घर की औरतें क्यों आए. एंड विद इन 3 years वो चेंज हो गया है. और अब आई थिंक मोर देन 95% or maybe, sorry, I'm forgetting, it was either 100% or 95% वो जो हैं वो ख़वातीन आ रही हैं, और ख़वातीन आ रही हैं, मोबिलिटी चाहे वो जो उनको ग्रांट मिल रही है वो रिसीव कर रही हैं, वो अब पहले सिर्फ मेल चिल्ड्रन को लेके आती थी, अब वो फीमेल चिल्ड्रन को भी लेके आ रही हैं। ये सिर्फ इस एक्टिविटी की वजह से नहीं हुआ, इसमें और भी बहुत सारी चीज़ें इंक्लूडेड हैं, जैसे उसी एक सर्विस जो हम प्रोवाइड कर रहे थे उसमें सिर्फ कंडीशनल कैश ट्रांसफ़र नहीं मिल रहा था उनको, उसमें उनको एक्सेस मिल रही थी, उनके आईडी कार्ड्स वहीं पे बन रहे थे। वो एक तरह से वन स्टॉप सेंटर था जहाँ पे आप आ जाएं हमारे पास, हम आपको आईडी कार्ड भी देंगे, हम आपके जो वाइटल रिकॉर्ड्स हैं CRDS भी है जो उसके ऊपर भी आपको सपोर्ट करेंगे, हम आपके बच्चों को इम्यूनाइज भी करेंगे। तो जब खवातीन ने आहिस्ता आहिस्ता देखा और जब मेल फैमिली मेम्बर्स ने भी देखा कि आहिस्ता आहिस्ता कि ये ग्रांट जो है वो खवातीन के लिए है, एंड इट इज़ नॉट रियली लाइक jeopardizing like sort of like social relations that they have in mind कि खवातीन पता नहीं क्या बन जाएंगी। जब उन्होंने देखा कि तो उन्होंने खुद फिर जो है वो इजाज़त देनी शुरू कर दी या खवातीन ने खुद आना शुरू कर दिया, और अब रियलिटी ये है कि खवातीन आ रही हैं और उनके पास अलहदा से एक सर्विस ये भी है कि उनके पास अलहदा से डेज मुख्तस हैं जिसमें वो आती हैं, वो अपना काम लेती हैं सर्विसेज और चली जाती हैं। And about 384,000 women, they also received identity cards for the first time, which you know if you don't have an ID card in Pakistan, you are basically not entitled to anything. तो ये जो नॉर्म्स वाली चीज़ है ये कॉम्प्लेक्स बहुत है, लेकिन ये चेंज होती है, and we should never assume that women who are sitting at home they have no power. Everyone has power, और वो फिर हम negotiate करते हैं despite different challenges, violence हो सकता है और restrictions हो सकती हैं, लेकिन हर खातून हर लड़की के पास एजेंसी, इनहेरेंट एजेंसी होती है जिसको आप इस्तेमाल कर सकते हैं in through your projects. You can hone that, but we shouldn't just focus on women and girls. We should focus on men and boys too, because social norms तो सारे मिलके उसको perpetuate कर रहे हैं।
मेरा नाम नरजिस खातून है और मैं अभी बेसिस पे मेरा टॉपिक यही है कि इम्पैक्ट ऑफ रोड इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर एंड टाइम पॉवर्टी एंड वुमेन एम्पावरमेंट। तो मैम जब हम स्टडी करते हैं मुख्तलिफ किस्म के रिपोर्ट्स वगैरह, स्पेशली वर्ल्ड बैंक की हैं, डेवलपिंग कंट्रीज़ और पाकिस्तान के भी जो हमारे पास फार फ्लंग एरियाज़ हैं, तो मैम जब उनका हम हिस्टोरिकल बैकग्राउंड देखते हैं और करंट जो हमारे पास स्टडीज़ हैं तो उनमें सिचुएशन सेम है, लाइक women are suffering much more और इसलिए कि उनकी एक्सेस नहीं है बेसिक इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर वगैरह के लिए। तो मैम और जब हम पॉलिसीज़ की बात करते हैं तो पॉलिसीज़ की प्रॉपर वे में इम्प्लीमेंटेशन भी नहीं हो रही है। तो मैम अकॉर्डिंग टू यू व्हाट शुड बी इन ऑर्डर टू इम्प्रूव वुमेन्स एम्पावरमेंट स्पेशली इन द रूरल एरियाज़? तो मैम आपका क्या ओपिनियन है, आप क्या कहिए?
थैंक यू सो मच। बहुत मुश्किल सवाल है, इसलिए वो वही बड़ी बात है कि अब डेवलपमेंट पार्टनर्स बिलियंस ऑफ डॉलर्स तो लगा रहे हैं और गवर्नमेंट भी जो है वो डिफरेंट फोरम्स पे कह तो रही है कि हम बहुत सारा काम कर रहे हैं और बहुत सारा काम हो भी रहा है, लेकिन अगेन अगर हम ग्लोबल इंडिकेटर्स देखें, जैसे मैंने अभी बात की है, खवातीन अभी भी वुमेन्स इकोनॉमिक पार्टिसिपेशन इज स्टिल वन ऑफ द लोएस्ट इन पाकिस्तान, और so that's like a larger question of overall development support aid, and how the government implementation how the government is implementing different policies, programs, and where the leakage is happening. तो उसमें बहुत सारे मतलब हमारे डिफरेंट प्रोजेक्ट्स हमें बताते तो हैं कि उसमें इनहेरेंट प्रॉब्लम्स, इंट्रिंसिक प्रॉब्लम्स तो हैं, जैसे हम जब बात करते हैं तो हम ये करते हैं पाकिस्तान में बहुत ज़्यादा लेजिस्लेशन मौजूद है, but if you look at the implementation, that's not much. I mean, we have laws on child, at least in Sindh we have anti-child marriage law, but implementation is quite dubious, and it's not just related to that. और भी अगर आप बाकी laws भी देखें तो वो different provinces में मौजूद हैं लेकिन उनकी implementation नहीं हो रही। तो उसमें as in from development organization perspective जो हमें नज़र आता है वो I'm sure वो हम सबको already पता है कि उसमें civil service के level पे भी, governance के level पे भी काफ़ी challenges हैं जिन्होंने implement करना है, law enforcement agencies ने जिन्होंने implement करना है, या bureaucracy ने जिन्होंने उन services को provide करना है, वहाँ पर बहुत सारे issues हैं, institutional corruption भी मौजूद है, और अगर हम इन इश्यूज के ऊपर काम नहीं करेंगे तो जस्ट बाय प्रोवाइडिंग, लेट्स से इन आवर केस इफ वी आर जस्ट प्रोवाइडिंग सपोर्ट, फाइनेंशियल support to the government of Pakistan, and if we are not taking into account these challenges related to, let's say, civil service reforms or sensitization or capacity building of different actors like police. अब पुलिस को आप देखें कि जब हम बात करते हैं ये सेक्सुअल हरासमेंट की भी बात करते हैं तो कितना ज़्यादा हम जो है इस तरह की एजेंसीज के ऊपर उनकी कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग के ऊपर इन्वेस्ट करते हैं, इससे कि जाके तो उन्होंने फर्स्ट रिस्पॉन्डर्स तो वो हैं अगर कोई भी केस होता है। इसी तरह से अगर फॉर एग्जांपल हमारा कोई एजुकेशन का प्रोजेक्ट है और उसमें हम एजुकेशन की जो है वो सर्विसेज को इम्प्रूव करने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं ताकि बच्चे जो हैं आउट ऑफ स्कूल चिल्ड्रन they receive, let's say they are inducted and they receive education, तो उसमें जब तक हम ये नहीं इस चीज़ को नहीं देखेंगे कि डिपार्टमेंट लेवल पे क्या कैपेसिटी है, सॉरी मेरा टाइम अच्छा, तो डिपार्टमेंट लेवल पे क्या कैपेसिटी है और उसकी कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग पे हम अगर काम नहीं करेंगे तो ये मुश्किल होगा। सो आई गेस कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग मेजर्स at the institutional level are as important as provision of resources to make services more accessible. I'm sorry for this generic answer, but I really don't have an answer for this. मैं इस पे कमेंट नहीं कर सकती, इसीलिए हमें हर सतह पे इस पे काम करना पड़ेगा कि हमें अपनी मॉनिटरिंग, अपना डेटा जो है वो इम्प्रूव करना पड़ेगा। दैट्स वेयर दिस SDG रिसोर्स सेंटर बिकम्स वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट। हमारे पास तो अभी तक डेटा मौजूद नहीं है फॉर सेवरल थिंग्स। फॉर एग्जाम्पल वी डोंट नो, अगैन वही जो सेक्शुअल हरासमेंट की हम बात कर रहे थे, हमारे पास अभी तक वो उस तरह का सवाल PDHS के जो डेमोग्राफिक हेल्थ सर्वे है उसके अलावा हमारे पास ऐसा कोई डेटा नहीं है जो बताए कि वर्क प्लेस हरासमेंट कितनी हो रही है या फिर घरों के अंदर किस किस्म की जो है वो वायलेंस हो रही है। पंजाब ने एक सर्वे किया है उसके ऊपर। सो मोर एंड मोर डेटा अवेलेबिलिटी इज़ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट टू एटलीस्ट अंडरस्टैंड व्हाट वी आर अप अगेंस्ट। उसके बाद जब तक पता नहीं होगा कि हम काम किस पे करना चाहते हैं वो उस वक्त तक तो फिर हम के हिसाब से फिर कोई प्रोग्राम नहीं बना सकते।
Thank you very much, Ms. Usma, for an informative and interesting talk and for answering the question in such a thorough manner. We apologize, we don't have time for any more questions. Dear audience, there is also a poster competition with the theme SDGs, and the posters are displayed outside in the gallery. Our esteemed judges have already compiled the results. Now I request Professor Dr. Bushra Yasmeen and Professor Dr. Azra Yasmeen to distribute the certificates among the winners. Okay, the first prize goes to Atiya Bibi. She is sharing the prize with Aisha Saeed, who is a student of BCA. Yay! There are two winners for the second prize, Ms. Nurul Ijaz and Ms. Kashyap Sneed. And the third prize goes to Ms. Manur Kaisar from BCA. Ms. Taraksha will receive her certificate. I now request Professor Dr. Azra Yasmin and Professor Dr. Bushra Yasmin to present souvenir to our esteemed guest speaker, Ms. Osma Quresh. May I now request the guest speaker and faculty for a group photograph.